The Lincoln Wishlist sales event is happening now. Here's what's on everyone's wish list. Enjoying holiday jingles with brilliant 3D audio that surrounds you? Check. Watching snow flurries through the panoramic Vista roof? Check. Packing up presents with the spacious Lincoln Splitgate? Check. Everything you want. All standard on the 2025 Lincoln Navigator SUV. Visit your local Lincoln retailer or learn more at Lincoln.com for exceptional offers on 2025 Lincoln vehicles today.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana makes car selling fast and easy from start to finish. Enter your license plate or VIN and get a real offer in seconds, down to the penny. If you accept, Carvana will come pick up your car from your driveway. Or you can drop it off at one of our car vending machines. Either way, you get paid instantly. It's fast, transparent, and 100% online. Car selling that saves your time. That's Carvana.
Carvana.
Pickup fees may apply.
The smell hits you first, a mix of iron, pine, and sweat. My hands are slick with blood, the warmth already fading as I tuck organs into Ziplocs and work quarters into game bags. The forest is quiet again. The chaos has settled, and now there's just work. The long pack out, the wait, the silence that follows taking life. But even through the exhaustion, there's a thought that won't leave my mind. The first meal. Not a gas station hot dog, not a drive-through burger or slice of pizza. No. What I'm craving is real. It's primal. It's charred, roasted meat, cooked over an open flame. The same animal I just harvested. But it's not about indulgence. It's about connection. This is where it all comes together. The hunt, the respect, the gratitude. It's the moment the story turns into sustenance. I think about the generations before me, people who ate the first heart, who didn't separate survival from ceremony. They didn't need coolers or sous vide bags, just fire, a knife, and the understanding of eating what you've killed isn't just tradition, it's truth. Tonight's meal isn't fancy. It's not plated, it's earned.
Join Justin Townsend and the Harvesting Nature crew as they explore the world of cooking wild fish and game while sharing recipes, tips, tricks, and lessons learned from their pursuit of wild food. We sure hope you ate before the show, 'cause you're gonna leave hungry. This is the Wild Fish and Game Podcast.
There's a moment every hunter knows, the silence after the shot, the steam from the body in the cold air, the weight of what just happened. The knife's still warm in your hand, and as you reach in, you feel that the life's just changed forms. And somewhere deep in your bones, you remember that this isn't new. It's something you've done before. Maybe it is new for some, but it's not new for us as humans. For thousands of years, hunters across the world have taken the first bite. Not later, not cooked, but right there. Sometimes it's a piece of liver, sometimes it's a slice of heart, maybe even a sip of blood. We talked a lot about myths and lore in some of our previous podcast episodes. We even talked about superstition and rites of passage, but the truth is, this eat first moment has deep roots both in survival and ritual, and that's what we're going to talk about today's podcast episode. We're going to dive into the first bites, the first meals, what comes after the hunt, after the butchery's done, after you're ready to just sit down and celebrate with, loose air quotes, your trophy meal. But first, let's talk about the history of the first bite. Adam, over to you.
Thank you. First bite. Hunting traditions have existed all around the world for countless millennia. We can see among the Inuit of the Arctic, the tradition is clear and very well documented. Especially after a seal hunt, the hunters would gather immediately to eat pieces of the liver or drink warm blood from the animal. And they'd often just eat the entire seal raw with the community eventually. It's a mixture of survival, and ceremony kind of together, warmth, nourishment, all in freezing temperatures. So it's a way to honor the animal that gave its life and a way to honor the community and the environment around it. Anthropologists have described these acts, how these acts reinforce the spiritual relationship between hunter and prey, where seal blood and Inuit blood are understood to be intertwined sources of life, which is pretty interesting. But the idea isn't isolated. Across the world, similar customs appear. Like in Finland, I'll never be able to pronounce this, but the Payeset tradition transforms the hunt into a communal wake for a slain bear. So it's a whole feast of gratitude and reverence rather than conquest. The community gets together, it gives thanks. It wasn't like I beat the bear. It was that the bear allowed himself to be sacrificed to basically become a meal. Across the world in Southeast Asia, the Batak people of Malaysia consume the offal and tail of hunting animals first. This partly because they cook fastest and go bad quickest, but over generations, some of these kind of practical habits have evolved into rituals, giving order and meaning to lives and to hunting and to eating. Also in many tribal communities in Africa, they actually have a pecking order as to who gets to eat first. Certain people like guests, elders, hunters tend to eat first, where children eat last, and there's an entire pecking order. It's not only happening in Africa, but has been documented across many modern and historical hunting communities. It's a very common thing. And it's not just in the past either. In modern Europe, echoes of this whole kind of thing remain. The German or Austrian Letztebissen, or last bite, it's a ceremony that honors the animal with a sprig of oak or pine in the animal's mouth after shooting it. Another way of recognizing that the hunting is a dialogue, not just a one-sided act. So in this case, the animal itself gets a last bite, which is pretty interesting. North America, the myth of the first bite still kind of circulates in some hunting circles. The idea that hunters should eat part of their first kill, especially if it's a young hunter and the very first time they've ever killed anything. American Hunter magazine actually reports that in Wisconsin, some hunters are still slicing off pieces of raw liver from their first deer to share among the group. Kind of acts as an initiation, an act of connection with the animal and with your hunting buddies, and sometimes just a test of grit. Being able to eat a bloody, wobbly piece of raw liver kind of is a bit of a test to prove yourself as well. We can now see with social media these traditions resurfacing. There's lots of clips of hunters biting hearts on camera, biting livers, doing different things. Sometimes it may look a viral stunt, and I think sometimes it is. But its lineage is actually ancient and time-honored. It's part of a recurring human instinct to give meaning to the act of killing for food, to turn the rawness of the hunt into a statement of belonging and respect, according to Vice magazine. And I think it's all just a way to connect the hunter to their community, to the other hunters around them, to the land, and to the animal itself. And I think all these traditions can kind of be traced back to searching for meaning inside that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when we examine too, and thinking through like a lot of, I don't know as much about some of the more worldly traditions, but in North America, we have a lot of prevalent I think first bite rituals. We discussed a lot of it like in our Halloween episode, but a lot of that probably a blend of already indigenous traditions that were probably practiced around survival or some sort of ritualistic practice, but then also combining that with sort of like, European practices as well as, an opportunities that existed African as well. So it's kind of a interesting blend that where North America lands with the combining of all these different cultures into kind of what we see today, probably in a lot of deer camps across North America, which I think is really cool. But there's more to this, right? You sort of dipped your toe in the pond of meaning, and I'll dive in head first. But when we talk about sort of the eat first tradition, it does make sense. And when we connect anthropological research with sort of our understanding of it, it broadens the aperture. And really, we can look at it through 4 different lenses. First, the practicality of it. Organs like liver and heart are nutrient dense, and if left untreated, uncooled, unprocessed, they can spoil quickly. So in the Arctic, the desert, tropical conditions, eating them fresh was often probably the most safest and most effective use of that part of the animal. Not to mention, if you look historically over time, people didn't always have backpacking meals. They had ways in which to preserve food, dried meat, pemmican. For the Polynesians, it was taro and poi and all these other things, but sort of that wasn't always available, or maybe at the time of your hunt you're running out, or you're nutrient deficient in some avenues where you aren't in others. So I think eating those really rich, nutrient dense organs would help revitalize your lack of nutrients over maybe a long hunting period, which would be really good, or sustain you to keep hunting. Second, the honor of it. The first bite or the first cut was a recognition of the hunter's role. So in small groups, it could show respect for the effort and the risk of the hunt. Same logic behind giving the shooter or spear thrower their preferred cut of like, you earned this piece. You kind of we honor what you did for the larger group. Third, the connection. And this anthropologist Tim Ingold writes that hunters and gatherers view animals as beings in an ongoing relationship, but not as objects, but as partners in the life cycle. And the animal offers itself, in the hunter's act of consuming. The first piece acknowledges that exchange. And that's from his 2000 work, The Perception of the Environment, it's a very, I think as hunters, I think it's more understood in the hunting community than it is the non-hunting community, this sort of connection. And people say like, oh, you're just saying that, facetiously, like you're connected to the animal and all this. I think there's a relationship that exists. There is a dependence upon one or the other that is prevalent. And I think through looking at it through a cultural lens, we can begin to like sort of peel back that onion and understand like, yes, hunters feel that the animal in most times is part of the cycle, and the reverse, for the animal's life, the hunter is part of the cycle as well, just as a prey or predator type relationship. It's no difference when you peel back the fact that we're humans and tend to separate ourselves from the animal kingdom is the top layer of that. And the fourth is the gratitude piece of it. And this is where we talk about eating first is always a way to fold emotion into necessity. It's an act that reminds the hunter and the community that taking a life should demand respect and not arrogance. That's really where we see the line blurred a lot on social media these days, I think, with the posting of, the old grip and grin or things like that, or posting hunts for likes or things like that. And, we have largely gotten away from that, posting pictures of sort of like the grip and grin, the happy moment hovering over the animal and all that. And there's a much more emotional, visceral feeling that I think isn't always translated appropriately across social media. That, is this the place to do it? Does it blur the line between respect and arrogance? I don't know. It's certainly up for debate for another podcast episode, I feel, but not this one in particular. But over time, the first bite has become much more about identity and tradition. Hunters' first hart, their first deer, their first elk, these moments are personal milestones, not just meals. And what might have once been a sacred or survival-driven practice now lives as a gesture of connection to something older, and a way to say, I understand what it means to take this life and feed my own, which is, I think that's pretty solid when you think about it that way. The meaning hasn't disappeared, it's just evolved. Some others could categorize it as hazing, others as homage. Either way, that ancient reflex to take the first bite and feel gratitude still lingers, in the blood memory of hunters everywhere. I think everybody could probably recall their first animal. Maybe not their first date, but maybe their first animal. I think it's kind of a monumental time period. And, we talk about like kids having like buck fever after they shoot it, where they get kind of shaky and really emotional driven. And I've seen adults do it. And I've, felt my own emotion after a sort of like really hard, physical or mentally driven hunt, where you're at the end of it, you finally make that connection and you're really excited and satisfied, and the emotions kind of go through, and you say your bit of thanks. Maybe you put some tobacco down, maybe you put a bite of food in the animal's mouth, maybe you pray to God, whatever your God or your ritual is. I feel like everybody probably has some sort of like something that they do.
Yeah, it's really interesting to think about, like all the emotions tied to it, and the fact that non-hunters generally have a hard time understanding what that's like. Like, imagine if you just climbed, say you're not a mountain climber, you're just like on a big hard hike and you climb a big mountain. You're going to want to take a picture at the top of the mountain and tell people, hey, I did this. This is something crazy I did. something so emotional, heavy, and amazing and incredible, and I saw this huge view, and I just want to share it. And I think with hunting, like the pinnacle of your animal that you shot, that you spent so long scouting and training and all this different things, and then the elation you feel, this weird sense of elation and somberness that kind of goes together. You just want to share it with people, which is really interesting. I think that's just that human connection. I think you're sharing something deep with the animal, and then you want to share it with your fellow people too. And in this modern world, without 100% of people hunting, it's like not everyone's going to understand that. It gets a little muddy.
Yeah, it can really quick, and I think the complexity, like I mentioned earlier, the social media aspect of it too. And I was just thinking through, like, you think through the concepts, before social media, and even still some places they still exist. You get like the brag boards where people put their pictures of themselves or their kids or doing whatever at the local, hardware store or outdoor store. They would staple pictures up or pin them up in the bar, or, things like that. And a lot of the times those are like, hey, I'm prideful of what I did. I want to show the community. Others, maybe it's like you don't see fully translated into the work that it went behind to get the animal. I think about that. Like, that could be thought about in a very divided way, and it doesn't have to be sort of, you get this like Western hunting versus Eastern hunting, the spot and stalk versus the sit and wait and all that stuff. Like, there's so much that could go into that, where you could divide and subdivide those into different layers. But like, how much work does it really take to shoot an animal? Do you walk from your four-wheeler, climb on the stand, and when the sun comes up, the feeder goes off and you shoot it? But there's still a lot of sort of iteration and preparation and repetitiveness that goes into that for people to dedicate time and all those. And I think as long as that sort of like consumption and respect element exists in that cycle, then I think it doesn't matter whether you're climbing mountains in Colorado or you're sitting in a deer stand in a Mississippi river bottom. Like, whatever, you're putting in the work for the animal, and as long as the end result is noble, one shouldn't shame the other, and vice versa. And you're still a hunter. And I feel like the hunting community tends to subdivide itself very quickly into different, in different organizations of, I'm a bird dog hunter, or I'm a backcountry DIY secondhand gear only, dirtbag elk hunter.
Yeah. It's that me more a cowboy than you kind of thing.
Yeah. That's it. And anyone
who has ever done like a 10-hour sit waiting for a deer to show up knows that it takes some mental and physical fortitude to even do something like that, which seems like a lazy way of hunting, but to do a 10-hour sit is pretty body breaking and mind breaking too, I found anyways.
Yeah, more like
it can be very difficult.
10-hour nap for me.
Yeah.
It's just wild. But I think to get kind of back to it, like there's still so much that goes into sort of like earning that first bite. And I think really thinking, from being very thankful is a healthy place to be. Like, historically, survivability and ritualistic and gratitude and thankfulness probably all come to a very like emerging head at that point, the pinnacle, once you're sort of thinking about it.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. This Monday night, witness the end of an era. John Cena takes center stage for his final appearance ever on Monday Night Raw. One last match, one unforgettable farewell. Come celebrate the legacy of a true WWE legend. Monday Night Raw, November 17th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time, only on Netflix. Be there for the moment everyone will be talking about.
Hey there, it's Dr. Sanjay Gupta with some exciting news to share. CNN is now streaming. That means you can read, watch, and stream everything in one subscription. You can watch news live 24/7. You can also explore catch-up videos and explainer videos, and you can also watch the library of CNN's originals, including my latest documentary, It Doesn't Have to Hurt. Just go to cnn.com/all access.
I don't know, Adam, what do you have any stories on kind of like the first eat or your cuts that you like to eat first?
I haven't had I didn't have any rituals with my first deer. The place, the camp where I shot it, they didn't have any rituals in existence yet. And I'm not really one for tradition, so I don't know if I would have went with it or bucked it, as was the case. Yeah, I think I just cooked the tenderloins up that night. I find the tenderloins make for a good first meal because everyone likes them. Like the organ meat, not everyone's going to like. So if everyone does like it, it does make for a better first meal. But yeah, the tenderloins are great because they don't freeze very well. And they don't age well. I've noticed a lot of people, because I do way more deer butchering than I do deer shooting. But I noticed a ton of people leave their tenderloins in to age hang with the deer. I
think they dry out really quickly.
Oh yeah, it's totally unnecessary. They dry out, you lose half your tenderloin. I think they're better taken right out of the deer after you shoot it and making a little meal with it or making breakfast with it. And then the other tradition I actually do have, and it has turned into a tradition, is every time I'm butchering deer, I butcher all my neighbors' deer, my friends, and I work butchering too. I end up with the first grind, like I grind some meat, and I make smash burgers every time for my wife and I.
Whoa,
with that,
nice.
Like freshly ground meat. Whenever there's a deer in the kitchen, I'll just like grind some and then make like super quick smash burgers on like shitty buns with whatever on them, and they're so good every time.
Yeah.
I just did that 2 nights ago. I was butchering a deer here, so that's something that it's become a tradition over the years for us, and a really enjoyable one too. There's no real reason for it other than the fact that I just ground this meat and it happens to be out in the kitchen, so I just kind of make a quick smash burgers with it while I'm freezing the rest.
I do that with the sausage. I like to set a bit aside, and when I make it sausage, not case it and just like cook it up as patties and eat it like right after. It's really good. It's a good celebratory.
Mustard on the plate and dip it in with your fingers. Yeah.
Sometimes in like tortillas or stuff like that, but
yeah.
I also think like the tenderloins, as long as they're properly clean, and I think that's where you get into like that really gray area of what happens during the shot of all the complexities behind that, but like what consuming it raw in like a tartare or I put on here carne pache, which is like a Mexican basically version of ceviche, where you're subbing out the fish for this like minced meat. And I think the tenderloin, just given the nature of its cut and the need to consume it fresh, I think would be like really good. Other than that, I can count a number of times where, I've sat on the side of a creek and I'm picturing like my first time hunting pronghorn antelope, cooking it up, the tenderloin, because that's like, it's the thing to do. You set it aside and like, all right, let's cook this quick. I think it's like a phenomenal approach.
Yeah. When doing some of this stuff, if you're looking for something super fresh, still a little raw, but you're a little worried about what might have been on the outside of what you're cooking, so something like the tenderloin, taking like a Japanese tataki approach, where you got super high heat, just sear the outside for like a second or two.
Oh, yeah.
And you're just killing everything off. You get a little bit of a crust around and then a perfectly raw center. So that's, if you're worried a little bit about the little wee beasties kicking around on the inside of the deer, that's a good way to enjoy like a raw product while still kind of disinfecting the outside of it.
Ooh, that's really good too. I definitely do. I don't know if the heart's always my first meal, but I know people, if we think through the concept of that, like even eating the heart raw, I've seen people doing that, like a heart tartare or like smoking it or doing things. I still think like the heart skewers, I've got the recipe up. It's up online now. We finally, after much poking and prodding by the wider audience, put that, so the Japanese inspired heart skewers, and those are probably my favorite way to eat heart, like hands down. And just that like marinating, quick grilling, and then serving top rice or whatever other stuff you have in there, like that recipe is just really, really phenomenal. I was on a podcast here last week with the Tushka Outdoors podcast, which is by the Choctaw Nation, so my tribe's like wildlife management office, and we were talking kind of all things cooking and stuff like that, and we were talking about keeping deer hearts. The question was like, what parts of the animal do you always recommend people keep? And we started talking about organ meats and things like that. And I was very happy to hear like, yeah, we'll always take Ziploc bags, with us to take the heart. And now, it was his kids who got really into it, and then now the liver as well. And I was like, that's really awesome to hear. And sort of like that keeping of the heart, I think, removing them from the stay behind pile and putting them as a prime cut in your freezer or consuming first is like, that's really, really awesome.
Yeah. I've actually seen some modern videos and some written stuff about traditional First Nations practices when like a buffalo or elk or deer, where the first bite is actually like squeezing intestine filling into your mouth, like straight from the intestine. So it's like partially digested like grasses and stuff.
Yeah. Man, talk about getting your probiotics going.
Yeah, jeez. And I've seen another one that like shooting a fawn and having like a milk-fed fawn, and the milky intestines is apparently like kind of a delicious first thing.
I've also heard of like drinking the milk as well from like a nursing doe, but also the consumption of the gall, like the liquid in the gall as well, of like dipping heart or meat chunks into the gall,
dipping right into it,
and then consuming that. And I know that's not popular just in North America. Like the consumption of gall is pretty widely practiced across the world.
It's pretty bracingly bitter, I'd imagine. It'd be an interesting. Those would be interesting first bites. My intrepid moniker might get pushed to its limits, sucking on raw intestines.
Oh, it's funny when you type in what does gall taste like. It's like a gull or seagull. No, that's not.
Not quite. Well, they may taste similar. Who knows? Bitter,
metallic taste result from bile reflux. Oh wait, no, that's a medical condition. Oh,
that's
whatever.
What you're gonna taste though. Yeah. It's gonna be bitter and metallic and bluish green.
Interesting.
Do you end up keeping the kidneys from your animals when you shoot generally?
Yeah, I do. I've started keeping them a lot more. I tend to they go in sort of the tongue category. I keep a good stash of kidneys lying around. That way, when I have enough that I feel comfortable, I've now started preparing like dishes. So I still I think you're like, what is it you make at Pig Camp with the kidneys?
Oh, I do. I've done deviled kidneys.
I think I like that one. That one's pretty. Good, It takes that like kind of metallic-y bite out of it. I really appreciate that one.
Yeah.
I'll say this: we did do 2 podcast episodes. One that was focused on liver and heart, and one that was focused on sort of the others. We did kidney, caul fat, trotters, and testicles all in one podcast episode. Mm-hmm. Those, if you're interested in diving deep into those sort of topics, we'll just hit wave tops here and from the instance of the first bite. But yeah, thinking through, if you want to learn more, go back. Those are podcast episodes 210 for the kidney, caul fat, trotters, and testes, and 207 for the livers and hearts, those are really in-depth, and that's part of our Cooking by Cut series. But yeah, you were going to talk about kidneys, and I interrupted you.
Oh yeah, it's just something I'll usually pull out. It's something that's left in a lot of people's gut piles, but I'll usually bring them home and throw them in a grind or cook something up with them. They've never been my first bite, but I do find all these organs that we're talking about, like the heart, liver, kidneys, they don't freeze all that well. They tend to freezer burn. You can have a steak in the freezer for a few months and it won't really change how good it is. But I find the heart you can really tell. So those are things that I try to make early on. I try not to leave them in the freezer for too long. So,
and I think outside the composition of the heart, some of the other the liver, the kidneys, they've got some different fluids and liquids and things in there that are existing that you can't really get out until you fully process and cook them. So those I think act a little differently in that preservation process than other things. The liver though, we talked a little bit about kidneys. I don't know. Did you want to hit on curried steak and kidney pie real quick? Because that's a good one.
It's just if you want to save the kidneys for the first time, and you're kind of afraid of them a little bit, and you want a good recipe, I have one on the Intrepid website, curried steak and kidney pie. And I think the steak and kidney pie is a great traditional kind of British way to eat the kidneys. It's not just kidney; you get steak in there too. And then I did a curried version of it, which I think the extra seasoning helps cover up that kidney flavor a little bit, but you still get the kidney texture. So it's a good recipe if you're looking to do something with your kidneys outside of eating them raw out of the animal.
So if you're looking for something quick cooking, so I guess we can have this category of like, we can divide them sort of mentally up is like raw, quick cooking, and then maybe like the prolonged preservation to be cooked later. So we'll bend things in those categories. So as we do that, if you want to throw both, I would say the heart and the kidney, you could probably do the liver in there too, in this category of quick cooking. Then one cool one, I stumbled across this recipe of like, it's Moroccan kebabs. And you essentially take them, cut them all down into sort of bite-sized pieces, and then do like a dry rub of sweet paprika, cumin, salt, and cayenne. And that's going to like, those are big, beautiful, bold flavors, which pair really, really well with big, beautiful, bold flavors of the organ meats. I think probably adding an oil and an acid in there, maybe move from a dry rub into like a wet rub, I would say, would be very good, but that could be really, really awesome way to like just quickly have a fire, throw them on, cut them up, toss them in your sort of wet marinade and throw them on the grill would be really, really tasty.
I actually made something similar to this at the last pig camp. It was like heart and kidney or heart and liver kebabs wrapped in caul fat with like a lot of cumin and coriander and chili on it and grilled, and those were good. Actually, speaking about the pig camp, a tradition that we've created amongst ourselves is that our first meal when we all kind of arrive, all of our friends and everything, we harvest a pig and we make tacos. And that's become the first staff meal every night whenever we do a pig camp, which has been quite a few times now. So that's been a little fun thing that we've started for our first bite there. Yeah,
that's true. I didn't even think about that. No, that's a really good one. I think tacos land up on the menu a lot of times for me for first, and maybe that's where it came from. But generally, like, cooking, and it's usually the loin that ends up. I would say tenderloin, loin ends up in the bin for quick cooking in tacos.
Flanks sometimes.
Flanks good, yeah. Whatever's kind of floating around that we're feeling in the moment, but yeah, and that you could do those. I really love it because you can do them over the grill, you can do them over a fire, you can do them, in a cast iron skillet, you can cook them in the microwave. I'm just kidding, don't do that. You could roast a whole loin and then slice up into medallions in the oven or the smoker, all those different things. So there's definitely like loads to do with the loins. I don't know, do you see a lot? I haven't seen people eat too much like consider the loin. I've seen people consider the loin a first bite, but much later in the timeline. More like bring it back and share it with family and friends, and that's the first thing they cook to sort of like showcase.
Yeah, I would say it's probably more like that, where the steaks are usually the first thing to go missing out of your freezer. So I think people, they're easy, they're delicious, they're reliable. I think people will turn towards those for their first meal, but maybe not a first bite, like not while you're still at the camp.
At the camp, yeah. I think liver definitely falls in that category.
A lot of people, and I've done this too, butchering lamb and pigs and different stuff at friends' farms that will have a liver meal the night of, some sort of liver and onions kind of deal.
Which I think is interesting because I grew up, like my grandfather really liked liver and onions. I did not. And so it's like taken me a while to get into the team liver. But you've got this great, and it's a duck liver recipe, but I feel like it could translate over into chopped up big game liver. That's your
it's the
sandwich.
The kebda eskandarani. So it's like an Egyptian liver sandwich, and I think it's originally made with water buffalo liver, so it would go well.
So it
with
would translate over.
Water
buffalo.
It's funny. There's a water buffalo farm not too far away from me, so I do have access to water buffalo stuff. Weirdly. But that's a really good sandwich. It's kind of often eaten for breakfast. Well, you don't have to, but it's a really good sandwich that if you're not 100% into liver, like it's a good way to eat a lot of liver without it tasting like liver. I found that to be even my wife isn't too keen on liver and she really enjoyed that sandwich. So I think that's a really good one if you're kind of exploring it a little bit.
Maybe that's it too. I think you hit the nail on the head. Yeah. I'm like liver adjacent. So I like liver in things, but I don't like liver straight up. Yeah. It's like people who like say they like a Jack and Coke, but they don't just slug back shots of Jack Daniels.
Yeah.
Just sub that in for liver. Like, I can deal with liver. Like, I love boudin sausage. I love dirty rice. I like pate, which I guess pate is muted down liver in some instances. The sandwich sounds amazing. I could get behind like liver adjacent things, but not just like wholly diving into the
just fried liver and onions.
Yeah, or raw liver. I would probably lose it. I don't know. Maybe I should try it.
I would try it, but I guess I'd be more worried about pathogens than choking on raw meat.
The same.
Yeah,
same.
I find I'm good for one liver meal a year, where it's like a big mess of liver and onions, and then I'm good for the rest of the year. I don't need any more of it. Everything else is like you. Yeah,
the majority of my livers go into boudin anyway, just because our house loves boudin, so that's the appropriate place for it. But also there's been a lot of conversation lately, and we've talked about it too, of like the incorporation, like if you're not a big heart, liver, kidney person, like whatever, like grinding that and incorporating it into your ground meat. I think that's probably the most low-key way to get that consumption, because you're getting all those vitamins and minerals from the organs, but through just normal consumption of hamburger or burger patties or chili or whatever you're making with it. And I think it's really a good soft approach to that nose to tail eating. Also too, maybe that's your celebratory meal. You're grinding everything. You're like, all right, we're done. Maybe the first bite's later in the process. Maybe the first bite's actually after the processing, when you're like, all right, and now actually all the work is done, and ceremoniously we can enjoy sort of this meal.
That's usually where I find my first bite is, rather than
in the field
pre-processing. Yeah, I find I bring it all back and do something with it.
I think so as we're sort of contextualizing all this, and this is like a living anthropological podcast version that we have here, as I'm hypothesizing out loud. But as we lean towards in the field versus post-processing, I think the connection really, maybe that survivability, ritualistic aspect of it lives more in the beginning stages of post-kill versus the more ceremonial or celebratory, or I think respect's paid through the process, but like the final, like, the process is done, we now have food, everything's tucked away in its Ziploc bag or vac sealed bag, stored in the freezer, and like, all right, let's enjoy this really nice prize cut. That's probably
let's finally sit down after all that work.
Yeah, that's kind of like that ceremonious, I think respectful sort of like, let's share it with, and that would fall in line, like if you're looking historically, all right, we spent months away gathering all this meat for our families, and now we're coming back into camp, and the elders get the first bite and the kids get the last, and whatever the pecking order is we talked about earlier, that sort of like falls into that, right? Because the processing would be done, we'd be there, we'd be eating meat, celebrating as a family, everybody's super excited because we got food to get us through the winter. And I think therein lies where that part of falls into sort of the historical context of post-kill meals.
Yeah, and there's one more that we can get into a bit, is the post-kill but pre-full processing area, which is the morning after the hunt.
Oh, so yeah.
You're still at deer camp. You got a deer, but your 2 or 3 other buddies haven't got one yet, and you've done some minimal processing on your deer to get it hung up and everything. Is it time for steak and eggs? Is it time for like a heart hash or something like that? I think that's a great time to get your first bite in.
I do like those. Yeah, that's a great appropriate time too, because it's like it's also kind of that mid-period pause in the processing.
You have time. You don't have to go out in the morning and hunt because you already got your deer or your elk or whatever. So you may be kicking back at the camp, making breakfast for everyone coming back in or something like that.
Yeah, which I think is a really cool. I've seen it too, whereas like whoever gets their animal first, like then turns into their responsibilities become a little more prevalent at camp, and maybe they're cooking for everybody, whereas maybe it was divided up before. And I've seen where people also seemed ritualistic of bringing the remainder of like their past deer from the year before in, and like those serve as the meals throughout camp. And there's some like sort of first, I guess it would be last bites to enable the first bites of the next ones. Yeah, it's the continuity of the tradition that would exist, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, I like that. It makes this whole annual kind of circle.
But I think largely I would still bin all of these sort of like first bites. Those are your quick cooking cuts.
Yeah, you're generally not going to do your first bite in a 8-hour crock pot kind of thing.
Although I have seen, so I once participated, this was with Jeremiah Darty back in California. He took a guy out hunting, and the thought is we wanted to get from shot to the beginning stages of butchering to finish butchering and packing everything and have like tacos ready in a single day. So we like pressure cooked this like roast that we cut off the animal and had like essentially like wild goat carnitas or something equivalent. Nice. Yeah, like afterwards, which I thought was really interesting concept. But that was the only time the celebratory meal was like this longer, slower cooked cut, and it was I could see it too if you cut off a chunk of meat and you had the availability of like, let's toss it in the crock pot and like just let it go, or the pressure cooker and let it cook. I don't know if I would. I guess that's a different category completely to bend things in with the invention of modern cookery.
Yeah. I find that takes a little bit of the romance out of it for me, to be honest. I feel like eating greasy fingers, paper plate, maybe just over, like outside, just by hand.
Yeah.
That kind of eating, like right off the fire or the grill or something, kind of feels like you're a bit more connected to the hunt still than something that's like using modern conveniences to cook.
Yeah, I think it takes me back to like I'm team heart, team tenderloin, team campfire, which is fine.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku. And it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
This is a real good story about Bronx and his dad, Ryan, real United Airlines customers.
We were returning home, and one of the flight attendants asked Bronx if he wanted to see the flight deck and meet Captain Andrew.
I got to sit in the driver's seat.
I grew up in an aviation family, and seeing Bronx kind of reminded me of myself when I was that age.
That's Andrew, a real United pilot.
These small interactions can shape a kid's future.
It felt like I was the captain.
Allowing my son to see the flight deck will stick with us forever.
That's how good leads the way.
I guess let's change gears a little bit and talk some about the actual process to prepare for the first bite, because I know some people do it and some people don't, and there's like some broader discussions of that. But before we dive into that, I do want to talk about this piece that I came across and I'll do it real quick so we can dissect this more, but I think the other two play in well to each other. There was a piece in Meat Eater back in 2017 that was written by Brody Henderson, and it kind of like lays the foundation as to what many refer to as sort of the like trophy meal. I'll lose that in quotes because I feel like there's a large group of people that are challenging the context of what a trophy is, and that sort of like trophy meal falls into that camp. But at the foundation, this article it's called Trophy Meals, Making Memorable Field Meals is the article. He discusses like a great field meal it's not about fancy gear, it's about simplicity, it's about using what's in your pack or what the land gives you, like some salt, some oil, the appropriate cut. He reminds us that the goal isn't to replicate a restaurant meal, but to elevate the experience with creativity, and even a simple seared piece of meat or a skewer of organ cuts can become a ritual and a way of saying this is where the work ends and the gratitude begins. Cooking in the field is also storytelling in real time. It's a combination of instinct, improv, and appetite. Brody emphasizes that field meals are more than just calories. They're a punctuation mark at the end of the hunt, a sensory reminder of the effort it took to get there, and that small piece of meat, still warm, eaten by a headlamp or starlight, becomes the link between the labor and the reward. It's a practice that turns meat into memory, something that separates hunting from mere collection. If you're not eating to fill up, you're eating to connect, to close sort of this circle that we have. And that every season deserves one of these moments, and a trophy meal that lives in your memory longer than the mount or the photo. And I said that you probably remember your first animal, but you may not remember your first date. But in this, he sort of preaches plan for it, pack for it, carry a small pan, a little oil, some seasoning, maybe a flask, make some space for that time to pause between the shot and the pack out and just really enjoy it. And that's when the story of the hunt stops being about the chase and becomes about the taste, about gratitude and not glory. And you're not trying to impress anybody with it. It's just a reminder of like why you hunt. And he encourages next time you're in the backcountry, take the moment, slice a tenderloin, fire it up, taste the place you're standing in that. I love that connection because I think that's a big, we'll say like Bourdaisnism of like a really good meal can be a really good meal, but it's also more, it's the smell, it's the taste, it's the environment, it's the sound, it's the ambiance that's completely around you. And we're not just talking about like a, Michelin star restaurant. We're talking about like everything down to just like eating on a plastic chair at a street stall somewhere.
Or out beside a fire under a pine tree, or
sitting along a creek bank in Wyoming, your first antelope tenderloin sizzling away in a jet boil skillet, and that's sort of the real trophy. And I think that's the concept behind sort of the trophy meal, because you can't hang it on the wall; it's only hanging sort of in your memory, which I think is really cool. And that's why I want to talk about that article. I really, really appreciate it.
I like it. It brings up something in. I don't get to do it too often here for like things like deer hunting, because it's usually November. Like right now we have a foot of snow on the ground. Kind of changes from year to year, but I'm not collecting a lot from around where I shot the deer to bring home with me. But stuff like goose maybe, or fish. Like I've pulled a fish out of the water. My first bite has been
the head.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But like, cooking the fish in a little cast iron pan over fire with whatever's around me.
Yeah.
With some nettles or some fiddleheads, or I've even stuffed trout with like cedar leaves and cooked it in a little pan with like cedar butter. And I find that first bite being made up of everything that's just directly around you is really special. But something I don't often get to do with big game animals.
Yeah, I think you really have to prepare ahead for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you don't in some aspects, but I guess it makes it easier.
If you know your territory, what you're likely to find in the seasons. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess let's break that down a little bit, because I do I don't know if you do it. I do it when I hunt sometimes. Like I have like a little kit, my little cooking kit, because if I'm doing. And I guess I'm starting setting it aside, even if I don't. Maybe it doesn't land itself in my pack if I'm like day hunting, but it's generally like in the box in the truck, or like at camp or somewhere, of like the little cooking kit. But always have kind of an oil element. And I've been considering a lot lately of like, because traditionally I've carried like avocado oil or like whatever's in my kitchen. I put in like a little square bottle. But do I switch to like tallow? Because it is in fact it's more solidified, so like I don't have to worry about it busting open, leaking in my pack. That might be
a little tub of tallow.
Yeah, like a little like a little Carmex tub or something full of tallow and enough to just throw in the pan. That's definitely a really good thought. But also spices. For a while we were pumping out the field kits, camp kits, whatever we're calling them, of like all our different spice blends, and they were in like those little foil packs. I still think those are genius, because it's just like a tablespoon of spice, and really that's all you need, with some salt. But there's all kinds of like apparatuses and tools for carrying spice. I do get concerned when I'm in like bear country and stuff like that of having spices and stuff in camp. Make sure you use a bear box, or hanging your stuff up in a tree, or whatever the process is wherever you're at. Like that's always a concern. I've heard of people bringing sides. I think in some times I've done it myself to be like, I bring the small veggie kit from like a backpacking meal or something to cook on the side to mix in. Like if I want to get really fancy, or like tortillas or slices of bread or things like that. I don't know. Any of those things, do you sort of have like a kit?
I kind of customize one, whatever I'm going to do. So I don't have a one that's already pre-made that goes everywhere with me. Because I kind of like to change it depending on where I'm going, what I'm doing. Some stuff I've done in the past, though, is like a Chinese scallion pancake kind of thing in a little squeeze bottle. Mm-hmm. You just like squeeze it over the pan in a circle until it becomes the pancake. And it's easy way to wrap some like seared duck breast in a little pancake and eat it, or a sausage or something like that. I find it's like a nifty little thing to have. And having little pancakes in your packet, they're just going to get all busted up. So cooking them fresh makes a lot more sense. Yeah, other than that, having salt obviously is the key. If you're gonna have nothing else, then you should have some salt.
I think salt and oil are huge.
Yeah, and I think I like my first bites to be pretty
mellow,
like just salt, maybe some pepper, like not much going on. I want to really taste that fresh meat. And then if I'm going to be cooking at a camp, then I'll bring a whole kit with me elsewise. But I keep it pretty simple. I think I want to really taste that like wildness from it.
And you haven't done as much like backcountry hunting.
No, barely. I'm in the east, and there's not much to do. Like that Western style hunting isn't common here. So
I would say in that I tend to lean towards like the Jet Boil or like its equivalent, whatever brand. And they have like these Boy Scout like aluminum tins, like the mess kits that the Boy Scouts had, and I just cracked one of the pans off of that and like kept it floating around in my pack. And then at one point I had, if you go to like Walmart or the dollar store, like things like that, they sell like those single egg like Teflon pans. This was before I realized that Teflon was out to kill me. And so I would take that and like I snapped the handle off of it so I could just hold it with a pair of pliers and sort of like cook in it. But Jetboil made this little makes this little attachment where you can put on top of the burner that actually has like these little forks that'll hold a pan, which I think is really cool. So I keep that in my pack as well. But then sometimes it's just like all I need is a fire. And then there's been other times where I've, you put the grill in the back of the truck or, whatever type apparatus, whether it's pellet or propane or wood or, wherever you're at. Sometimes there's fire restrictions and things like that. So you got to modify. But I feel like thinking through the afterthought definitely over the years has become more prevalent in consideration for like packing, to make sure like, I definitely want to enjoy some first meals off the animal. My first bites, I want to be in the field wherever I'm at, or I want them to be nearby. So like, I definitely have been considering that more and more. I don't know, but do you think, and this thought floats through my head all the time, does it jinx the hunt?
Like thinking that you'll definitely have an animal to prepare. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't believe in jinxes so much.
Why?
We were talking on the Halloween episode, the superstitions and jinxes and stuff. Like I find I'm not too affected by, or I'm not too anxious about them.
Sure.
So I would always go prepared. The Boy Scout in me would rather be prepared than would think that I'm jinxing something. I think the true jinx would be to show up with no equipment or anything and then not be able to do what you want with the animal you shoot. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I do. I think about like, I definitely packing the cooler is a priority. But is like packing the grill a priority, or I don't know. It becomes like a big debate. Like, where do you draw the line of like what is preparation and what is the potential to jinx a hunt? But I don't know. It's all mental anyway.
Maybe bringing your backboard for your big buck bust to go on your wall is maybe going to
maybe maybe that's a
be prepared for the
I feel like we've covered a good bit here. Diving into like that first bite, I feel like we've sort of connected the circle and connecting the circle. I don't know. You have any last thoughts?
I think it's kind of a fun thing that even if you don't have your like a camp tradition, or you don't have, if you're an adult onset hunter like myself with no family traditions, like having some of these kind of first bite traditions can be a bit of a touchstone, and it can really allow you to have a deeper connection, have some fun, have some annual treats that you can kind of get used to and look forward to every year. Whether it's sucking on some raw intestine or or doing a little steak and eggs in the morning. I think there's a lot of different ways you can do it. And I think it's fun to honor those kind of old traditions and fun to make your own new ones. So yeah, give it. If you don't have one, give it a shot. If you do, I'd like to hear it. We'd like to hear it from you and say like what your traditions are for first bite.
Just adding in there, like even if you're an adult onset hunter and you didn't grow up sort of with that, like start establishing your own traditions. Nobody cares. Maybe it satisfies sort of something that you've connected with, or do you have a tradition maybe that's outside the box for what we've talked about today? Like, is there some other tradition, like you always eat a specific thing, a granola bar, or you drink a Monster Energy drink? Like I don't know, like there's loads of things that you could do like that exist outside just the first bite of the animal. I'd be curious to learn about that, but I'm definitely really keen on understanding more about what the first bite is. What's that trophy meal? What does it look like for you in sort of your personal space? But I also like encourage everybody if you don't involve it as part of your practice, like try, figure it out. It'll be fun. It'll be cool to sit back and tell stories about it later of, sitting on the ridge, overlooking this beautiful pine-laden river bottom, eating a fresh piece of kidney. Anyway, thanks everybody for listening. Please, whatever podcast platform you listen to, punch that 5-star button. Leave us a review. Tell us we're doing right or tell us we're doing wrong. Thanks everybody. Have a good